What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Set Bet Spike, powered by FTN Bets, right here on Game Plus Network, live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Coming at you a little bit later, live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Of course, we were back in action this morning. EY, Dangle Betselli, officially live. Also can be caught on Game Plus Network, as well as our FTN Network YouTube page, wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcasts. So we're going to take the time to turn aside the hockey talk for now. If you guys have any hockey questions, by all means, we'll address them on this show. But we do have the show live that you can check out on our FTN Network YouTube page. So we're talking a little football here today. We're going to hit the waiver wire, take a look at some running backs, some wide receivers, some quarterbacks to stream. Of course, now we are into week 6 of the NFL season. So that means we have 4 teams on bye. Things are going to get a little bit more challenging in fantasy football. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. You want to make sure you have pieces on your bench to help you get set up for the stretch run. We're going to preview what will probably be a stinker of a game on Thursday Night Football, EY. Bears and Commanders. I don't know. Looking forward to that one, are you?
I'll say the saving grace is that, 1, it's football. 2, they're both bad, so it could be competitive, right? I'll say that against Tennessee, the defensive line of the Commanders looked pretty good. I don't think Tennessee's offensive line is great, but they're decent. I mean, obviously lost, their highest paid left tackle, Taylor Lewan. But, I mean, they haven't seemed that manhandled before, and Washington was really getting after Tannehill. My hope as a Justin Fields owner is that they're after him, and he's running for his life, and he gets us 50 to 60 running yards. Justin Fields has been weird, man. I mean, I was really wrong on him. I thought that he would take a step forward because of the new coaching staff and having another year in the NFL. It does not appear to be the case. But again, it's these glimpses of being a really good player. It happens. And, in 2 quarterback leagues, I've been really kind of forced to hold on to him because there isn't anybody available for me to go after. And the hope is that he runs more and continues to grow in confidence, and they allow him to throw the ball a little bit more. But man, he's been real bad.
He has been bad. So we'll break down that game in just a little bit. We have the schedule, and I got some running back rankings as well that I want to address with you guys. But let's talk about last night quickly, like we normally do on a Tuesday. We recap last night's football game. So we had the Chiefs and the Raiders last night. Las Vegas came out hot, strong start. We're up in the game. I joked on Mean Streets about it because, I mean, the Chiefs were down 14-0, and they were still favored to win that game last night. Vegas knows, right? We're not counting them out. These guys are going to come
Mahomes,
back.
You just know, right? My wife, Sarah, she was watching it with me, and she's like, well, this isn't very exciting. I was like, don't hold your breath. I mean,
it could get better.
The Raiders, I think, are way better than their record shows. I mean,
absolutely.
Three of their losses, within a few points, a couple bounces go their way. I don't know what's going on, man. It just they just cannot buy a break. I didn't think that they were going to beat Kansas City, but who knows? I mean, it's been a wild year.
I thought they would cover, and they did, but you're right about their losses. So week 1 against the Chargers, 24-19 loss. Week 2, 29-23 loss. They were in control of that game until the second half. I don't know what happened there. I mean, they let the pedal. I mean, they had pedal to the metal, and they let their foot off the gas, and they changed up everything. And Arizona came back in that game. And then the Titans, they lost by 2 points. Then they beat Denver. They looked really good running the football with Josh Jacobs, and Jacobs looked really good last night as well running the football. Awesome. I wouldn't sell him. I have a lot of sell high questions about him this morning. He looks awesome. He's just a good running back anyways. They declined the 5th option. So he talked about motivation from his standpoint, whether he's a Raider next year or not. He's playing for a new contract, and he looks really, really good. And it's taken some time this season for McDaniels and company to give him the rock and understand not re-upping as well. It's a new coaching staff in place. They hadn't seen this guy. They're not just going to re-up without seeing how, what he can do on the field. And I'm sure McDaniels would tell you, they've really got a player there in Josh Jacobs, and they're starting to run the ball a little bit more. And he had a great game last night. But yeah, another loss last night by 1. So looking at their 4 losses, 5, 6, there's 11, 12, 13, 14 points combined on their 4 losses. That's tough. It's a tough division. It's a tough conference. I don't want to say that they're out of it, but they do have a bye. As you see here, they're one of the 4 teams that are on bye this week: Detroit, Houston, Las Vegas, and Tennessee. And then Devontae Adams had a little bit of a fit last night. He shoved over the audio guy or camera guy. So you're without Adams this week because of the bye, and you could potentially be without Adams again next week because a potential 1-game suspension. What do you think? Think he gets?
Yeah, it could happen.
Fine.
In the world we live in, he could be up on assault charges. It just depends on what that guy wants to do. Obviously, it's not a big deal. The guy's, physically fine. But he just
flying.
You just can't do that. Come on. One, you get paid regardless. And I get that these guys are all psychos and they're competitors, but you lost a football game that in the grand scheme of life literally means nothing. I know football people are going to be mad at me for saying that. He gets paid regardless whether they win or lose. He's got more than enough money to spend in 5 lifetimes, and a person that has nothing to do with it, go push a player down. I don't, at least the players are dressed in equipment and had something to do with it. That poor guy had nothing to do with it. He apologized right away. I think Devontae Adams is a very good dude. Obviously, I've never met him, but in all things in the media and stuff you hear about him, he's a really good guy. But that's problematic. And like you said, now if you're a Devontae Adams owner, you could be without him for 2 weeks to buy, and there very well could be a suspension. I'd be surprised if there's not something. There's going to be a fine for sure.
It's got to, yeah.
There has to be. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. I know it is. So I was just looking up here on the fly, Devontae Adams, just seeing if there's any news. And man, some of the memes and videos are just, they're off the charts, man. They're just camera guy heads for exit, Devontae Adams. And it's the video of Happy Gilmore, chasing down his caddy when his caddy steals his clothes and he gives him a shove. Then there's another one. Me on Good Morning America. If Devontae Adams pushed me like that, picture of I think it's Stone Cold. He's got a neck brace on already. It's uh-oh. And then there's another one, Devontae Adams walking off the field last night. And it's just, dodgeball with Stiller and just absolutely jokes, videos and memes from that last night. But ultimately, like you said, it's a Bush League move. It was, it's not something, I'm sure he regrets it. He said it right after. Daily Handles in the house says he hopes Adams gets charged. And then he says the camera guy is hurt. Yeah, if he's hurt, whether he's hurt for real or not, if he's saying he's hurt, he's getting charged. Yeah, yikes!
It's assault.
Not a good look. Can't do it. Not a good look. Any takeaways from that game last night, though? Besides Adams,
I said, I think the Raiders are way better than we thought. I think if you're a Josh Jacobs owner, you're grinning from ear to ear. The running back world is just a wasteland, and now we're into bye weeks. Rashard Penny out for the year. Javonte Williams out for the year. Connor is hurt. Patterson is hurt. Everybody's hurt, man. And people's asking if you can sell high on them or whatever. If you have other running backs, enough running backs to sell Josh Jacobs for anything, you're probably undefeated. Is the reality of it. Josh Jacobs has been very, very good, especially the last 2 games. And I think selling him would be a massive mistake.
Yeah, there was a question this morning on Main Street. Should someone trade Aaron Jones and Hunt for Jacobs? I thought that one. I don't think you should trade 2 running backs for one. I still believe in Aaron Jones. It's nice to have that running back depth. But a couple takeaways for me last night is that I thought it was a coming out party for MVS. He's the guy that the Chiefs really paid. I know they drafted Sky Moore and they also, signed Juju, but I believe Juju is a 1-year deal. MVS is the guy they gave the money to, and he showed up yesterday. We had his receiving yard.
Right? They've barely used him.
Prop.
He's
Who's that?
MVS. They barely even target him or throw him the ball. I get he's not Tyreek Hill, but he's fast. From all the reports of him in the offseason, his route running has drastically improved. He's a good guy. Everybody likes him. He's barely had any targets. He can't produce if you don't throw him the ball.
Right. And yesterday was a coming out party for him because he had 8 targets, which was a season high. He had 6 catches, season high, 90 yards, season high. Even on the limited work, EY, To your point, like week 1, 4 catches, 44 yards. Week 3, 4 catches, 48 yards. Last week against Tampa, 3 catches, 63 yards. So not getting a lot of targets, not touching the ball a ton, but just showing us how explosive he can be. Over the past couple of years, he's been one of the leaders in ADOT, average depth of target. Free tools you can see over at ftnfantasy.com, along with air yards and target percentage and air yard percentage. But he's a deep threat guy, right? I feel like Mahomes is still trying to get a feel of who he has. And clearly inside the red zone last night, he had Travis Kelce. Kelce has 4 touchdowns, and he hardly had any yards.
Yeah.
Finishes with 7 catches for 25 yards, but he has 4 touchdowns. How about the Raiders just have a game plan for this guy? Like, listen,
the ball's going to him.
The reporter said after the game, like, Kelce, how do you get it done when everybody in the stadium knows that you're getting the ball? And he kind of laughed about it. I felt like he wanted to say, well, the Raiders clearly had no idea I was getting the ball because I was wide open in the end zone the entire game. But yeah, just obviously a beast. But I feel like last night was the start of something for MVS. There could be some inconsistencies there. Maybe it's a Juju game moving forward, but I have way more trust in MVS. First of all, he's catching the ball and Juju's dropping, and the way that he is used down the field and what Mahomes can do, creating how many times we've seen him extend plays. And I believe we saw that last night a couple times with MVS, stretching the field and Mahomes, linking up and hooking up with him. I got a couple of running backs here. We can move on from the game. I think that's it. Like, Chiefs are good. We know that. Raiders are in a hole. Now they got the bye week. We mentioned all that stuff. If you could buy on Jacobs with the bye coming up, these are things I always like to kind of touch on with buy low and sell high. Like, with teams now on bye, and we have this. So we have 4 teams on bye here. We have Detroit, Houston, Las Vegas, and Tennessee. I don't think that you can get Henry. I love what we talked about last week with his involvement through the air. It's happening. We're seeing that more again. So. Yeah, it happened again. His receiving yard prop he cashed in the first quarter. But you may be able to, like, if you're in a really good spot, say you're 4-1 here or 5-0, you don't have to do too much, obviously, with your team. But if you go look at the Jacobs owner, the Devontae Adams owner, the Damian Pierce owner, the Brendan Cooks owner, Amon-Ra St. Brown owner, if people that own those guys on those teams are like, they only have 2 wins, 1 win, this is a time, like, they're super desperate for guys to play this week. They can't afford another loss this week. So I always like to check in on players on teams that have bye weeks, just in case, you never know how desperate somebody could be. So we're saying don't trade Jacobs, but a Jacobs owner may be like, you know what? Like, I need a starting running back this week. I can't afford another loss. So I would always check in on those guys for sure. But talk to me about Henry as well, because he is getting used differently than he has in years past.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been saying this since he started. Him catching the ball does not matter. Nick Chubb catching the ball does not matter. They're 2 of the best runners in the league. The offense flows from them. They're going to touch the ball 20 plus times. And Henry's proven, look, he's not running dynamic routes. He's not running angle routes or, anything. He's running out on a screen, standing there. Everyone thinks it's going to be a throw. They throw it to him. He knocks the guy down. He runs 15 yards. He does that 2 or 3 times a game, and it just adds to his floor. He's not reinventing the catching game as a running back. That's never going to happen. That's not what he's done his entire life, and it's not, who he is as a player. I've said this story on every football podcast where I've been asked to talk about him. I'm at camp. I'm 5 feet from the field. And the play when I realized that he was a special human being was on a swing pass. He runs out to the side. He's bigger than the defensive ends, and they throw him the ball, and he, like, the ground, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm 5 feet from the edge, or probably 10 feet from the edge of the field, and he runs along the sideline, and you could feel the ground shake. Like, it was nuts. And he was moving in a way that, like, your brain can't comprehend, because your eyes are seeing this massive human being, like massive human being, and he's running at a speed that doesn't make sense. And I've said this before. I think that's the biggest thing. These football players have played football their whole life. They're doing these minuscule, minor calculations in their head of the line they need to take to intercept somebody. And I think body size has a lot to do with it. They're not like, they don't see the number. They know it's him, but they're not really thinking, oh, it's Derrick Henry, he's fast. They're seeing this huge human being run, and they're like, I'm going to take this line. And the next thing you know, they're beside him. He's stiff-arming them and knocking them off like they're flies. He's a once-in-a-generation player. I've said that. He continues to be that guy. People that were afraid to draft him because he rolled his ankles when a guy stepped on his foot, a lineman stepped on his foot, you're fools. I mean, it's running back position is volatile regardless. They get hit on every play, blocking or running. But yeah, man, I mean, I could talk. How long do you have? I could talk all day.
I just feel like some people are a little still uneasy about him. And now bye week is some questions. Should I trade Derrick Henry? I know, just there's no reason to. He's still getting a ton of work, 28 carries, 102 yards. He's back-to-back games with 100 yards on the ground. In 4 of his 5 games, he's had 20 touches on the ground, and he's catching. As I mentioned, the last 3 games, 5 catches, 58 yards, 3 catches, 33 yards, 2 catches for 30 yards. It may not seem significant, but Henry has never been used that way. It's a very small sample, but if you go back and look at last year and the 8 games that he played, he had a career high 2.2 catches, career high 20 receiving yards. So far this season, receiving career high 24.2 receiving yards, 12.1 yards per reception is the highest since his sophomore season. He's got 14 targets and 10 grabs. He has 9 more catches. He's going to tie his career high, and he's halfway to his career high in terms of targets, and we're only into week 6. So just wanted to kind of mention that. Reese says camera guy is faking it. And he also says, should I sell Pitts for Dylan? He has David Njoku. I'm fine with trading Pitts. Like it just may not happen for him this year.
If you have David Njoku and you get Dylan, like it takes one injury to Aaron Jones and Dylan's the man. Like I understand Dylan hasn't done much of anything. Definitely a letdown from my perspective, and anybody that drafted him is ready to probably dump him. You mean, but like you said, like the running back position is so volatile. Even Aaron Jones isn't doing a whole lot there. They just seem to be throwing the ball a whole lot, not throwing it to him, which is very surprising. I mean, to me, I think Aaron Jones is probably their best pass catcher on that team. But
I don't know what they're just doing, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You just lost to the Giants with no receivers,
and they almost
Daniel
lost
Jones is the quarterback, and they had no receivers, and they lost.
And they almost lost to the Pats the week before with a rookie quarterback and Zappy making his first NFL appearance, thrown into the game,
undrafted.
Just thrown into the game. The Packers are. I've always felt like the Packers are overrated. Like I just always felt like Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. They've done nothing for him. You know, drafting guys. They drafted Christian Watson. He can't stay healthy right now. Dubs is like a 4th round pick. You get excited about Dubs, but really, like, come on. Rodgers has thrown a touchdown pass to 1 first rounder in his career. 1. It's Mercedes Lewis. He scored the other day. He's still kind of hanging around. Like it's crazy. They've done nothing. He's made it work with other guys. Yeah, he's made it work with other guys. You know that have Devontae Adams is a stud, obviously, and Jordy Nelson was great, and there's been other guys that have been fantastic inside the offense for him. Randall Cobb, right? Like Randall Cobb before, and now he's back for another go. But I would just like to see the Packers run the rock. I would probably make that trade, Reese. People really like Pitts. It's even though he's struggled. If he didn't have Pitts on the back of his jersey, he'd be on the waiver wire, and nobody would be thinking twice about picking him up or starting him. But some people really do like him. They could hang on to last year. You may be able to do better than Dylan, especially if Pitts was to have a good week. But if you can get Dylan now, I just go for it. Get the running back depth. But I think honestly, if Pitts was to have a really good week, he didn't even play this past week, but if he was to have a really good week, then you could probably get a better return for him. As we got the Falcons on the schedule against the 49ers, like they're in another tough spot this week. The Niners defense looks fantastic, and I don't really expect Atlanta to be able to do too much. They're not really throwing the football, but it could be, if he's healthy, Pitts could rack up some targets, and what I think will be, game script will have Atlanta throwing the ball there quite a bit. We did have another comment. Adam's in the house here. What do we got? Rodgers gives up the momentum. They don't have a lead or turn the ball over. Yeah, I think the play calling was just atrocious too. Like every team has they've been able to run all over the Giants, and you have two guys in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon who were pretty good in that game between the tackles. AJ had like 5.7 yards per carry. Give him more than 6 carries.
Yeah, I don't
Rodgers
understand. I just don't understand.
Rodgers is not on the page with his wide receivers. He's not on the same page with these guys. Why don't you guys run the rock with your 2 running backs?
He said it in the offseason. Both of those guys have got to be on the field. And like that's how we're gonna win. And he's right. Like, and the fact that it's not happening is just it's super confusing at this point. We're going into week 6. And I mean, Aaron Jones had the one real crazy good game, but other than that, I mean, he's barely touching it, and Dillon's touching it even less. Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Let's get to some waiver stuff before we officially, forget about week 5. We got week 6 here to kind of ramp up. So this is what I came up with, EY. Ken Walker's the big waiver wire pickup. We talked in the show about, holding running backs, multiple running backs. Walker was most dropped a couple weeks ago. Michael Carter most dropped last week. Now both of these guys show up. Unfortunately for Rashad Penny, another injury for him. It's too bad. He looked really good. He had a couple nice runs against the Saints. He was great last year, but he just has not been able to stay healthy. He broke his leg. He's done for the season. Now, Kenneth Walker, who's a back that Seattle drafted pretty early, who is now in a really good spot for 15 plus touches. I think DJ Dallas will still catch a few balls to the backfield, but Walker should be the lead. He had a couple nice plays. He found the back of the end zone against the Saints this past weekend. The Seattle offense is not as bad as I thought it would be. Geno Smith, you touched on it on this show last week. You'd rather have Geno than Russ. And man, Geno was pinpointing passes to DK, throw him touchdown passes deep down the field to Tyler Lockett. He looks good. This offense is not awful, and the defense is atrocious. So we could see an up-tempo offense, more times than not moving forward. But Walker's here on this list. Before we get to the others, I guess the question for you, would you spend all that fab on Walker if you needed him for a running back?
Yeah.
I think it's like empty the bank for this guy. Use your number one claim, whatever it is, fab, bucks, rolling, scrolling, waiver wire claims. Like this is a guy I think you need to get. And he's going to be ranked as a top 24 running back for me moving forward for sure. With upside, I think, to be potentially a top 15.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I lost Penny in a league, and I got a couple okay running backs on that team, but I think we had a $200 waiver bid thing, and I've spent a little bit, but I've got most of it left, and I'm thinking about putting like 160 down for him. I mean, I think it's Hupper is hurt, so DJ Dallas is there, and I think he'll play a little bit. But Kenneth Walker, we heard Pete Carroll. I mean, he never has anything bad to say, but he was like, he's surprised at how good he is. He also said he was really surprised at how good he was in the pass game. And if your coach is saying that, like, I get he never says anything bad, but if he's saying that, then he believes it. And I think Kenneth Walker could be a league winner. Seattle's offense has been really good. Like you said, like their defense can't stop a nosebleed. So they're going to have to score. The running game is always going to be important to Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. It sets up everything else that they want to do. Geno Smith has been outrageously good, which, there's nobody on earth that saw that. Nobody. There's not a person there. He was available on every waiver wire after week 1. Some people picked him up, and a tip of the cap to you. You're very wise, and you're reaping the benefits. I wish I would have drafted Geno Smith and not Russell Wilson.
Man, you and me both. Oh my goodness, I got Russ in some spots, and I just don't know if I can roll him out anymore.
Can't win.
We said it last week, like Trevor Lawrence the rest of the way. Lawrence had a rough game, but I expect him to bounce back. But yeah, Russ is. What am I going to trust Russ on Monday night against the Chargers? He's dealing with the shoulder thing now too. It's really tough. But for Ken Walker, we have snap counts. We have all that stuff over at FTN Fantasy. If you're part of the family and have the package, you can see it yourself. But give you a little sneak peek here. So Walker played 30 snaps. He ran 14 routes. He had 8 carries. He did not have a target. DJ Dallas only played 10 snaps and he ran a route on 8 of them, and he did have 1 target and 1 carry. So I agree with everything you said. Empty the bank, get Ken Walker, next man up. If you weren't able to have him, stashed, or somebody dropped him, like, go get him. You have a starting running back. I think DJ in deeper leagues, in a full point setting, a PPR setting, I think, like for a buck, or, you're got the 11th claim. You could just potentially get him. You just don't know, right? Walker, he could go down, and all of a sudden DJ Dallas is the next guy. We saw a little bit of that from him, I think, last year when Penny was hurt and Chris Carson was hurt. DJ came in. He wasn't super efficient, but he was getting touches, and its volume is king. It's hard to ignore that kind of stuff. So DJ's up at the top. We got Black Jetty in the house. We'll get to that question in just a second here, dude. And then Daily Handle says that Corey Clement is getting worked out for the Cardinals, and he's just a guy. As we saw here on the board, Benjamin is on the list. So Brian Robinson, the thing with Robinson, he did look good, and we don't know about Connor. Clearly, Connor is going to miss some time if they're working out a guy like Corey Clement, who's just a third down running back. That's all he is. And Darrell Williams suffered an injury in that game as well against the Eagles. So Eno looked good stepping in, as you mentioned. He had a touchdown. He can catch. He's the guy to pick up in Arizona's offense. I wouldn't worry too much about Clement and things like that. Don't have any official word on James Conner, but again, they're working out other running backs. He could miss some time, and he's missed time before in the past. Like, he's been a guy that, unfortunately for him, his health has been a little bit of an issue. As for Washington, like, what do you do with this backfield? So the first game with Robinson starting, dude got shot like 6 weeks ago in his first NFL game. He's back already. He played 18 snaps. He ran 5 routes. He had 9 carries, a team high 9 carries in his first game, 9 carries. Antonio Gibson was limited to 20 snaps. He ran a route on 12 of them. He had 4 targets. He only had 3 carries. J.D. McKissic led the backfield in routes run, in snaps played, led everybody in targets with 7. Actually, Curtis Samuel had 8, but he had the most targets out of the backfield and the second most overall and 0 carries. This is a mess. We've been telling people to get rid of Antonio Gibson for quite some time. I wouldn't buy low on him. I would not start. I drop in a 10 or an 18 league, but in a 12 team, again, it's next man up mentality. You want to have those running backs, but Brian Robinson is certainly trending up. He's worthy of a pickup. Would you sell him? Would you sell high on him? Because knowing it's going to be a crowded backfield all year, and it's a rookie. It's exciting. We just saw him lead the team in carries in his first NFL game. Do you think he has more room to grow, or do you feel like you could take advantage of like an RB needy team maybe to get rid of this guy?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that, the Commanders want this guy to be a thing. They love him. The place went crazy. It's such a feel-good story. I think at some point he could be a very good running back. But the point is almost every team now in the NFL has 2 guys. There's very few bell cow running back situations, maybe 3, maybe 4. Everywhere else it's 2. And if it's 3 for fantasy, it's a death sentence. It's a death sentence. J.D. McKissic has been ruining people's lives for 5 years. This is just ruining your lineup and ruining your games and ruining the snap counts for the guys that you have in front of them. I don't think I respect McKissic enough because I never take him, and he always ends up, with points every single game, catching balls. Washington is not a good football team. Carson Wentz has never seen a throw that he doesn't like. The defense, the defensive line looked much better, but other than that, they don't seem to be able to stop anybody. And the biggest point is you're never going to know when it's going to be a game where he's going to be effective. Most of the time they're going to be down and J.D. McKissic is going to be on the field. They're never going to trust Brian Robinson over McKissic because he's proven he's a veteran. He's obviously good at pass catching and pass blocking on third down. He's going to be on the field. He's, in the second, 2-minute drill, 4-minute drills, it's going to be McKissic because it always is. And they're not going to just, people are like, oh, they're going to scratch Gibson. That isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's going to play too. Robinson's going to play. McKissic's going to play. And good luck guessing which one is going to be. I don't want any part of any of it. If you have these guys, Robinson, I think especially, I say hold it. If he has some big blow-up game, deal him. The second he scores a touchdown, try to get rid of him.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's bad news for Gibson. Like for Robinson to come in.
Anybody that owns any of those guys.
Yeah, I think so too. You're right. McKissic is a really good pass catcher. They brought him back. It looked like he was going to sign a contract with the Bills. They did what they could to bring him back, and he's kept his role. And you said it perfectly. Washington's not a good football team. They're playing from behind. and they're having issues running the rock, and they're throwing it quite a bit. Like Carson Wentz leads the NFL in air yards. You said there's not a throw he doesn't like. You're not wrong. He's throwing the football, and I think ultimately it's bad news for Gibson. I think McKissick you can hold in a full point PPR. You probably never feel great about starting him. You put him in as a flex. We get into injuries. If there's a game script where maybe one of the two is out, maybe Gibson gets hurt or something like that, then you'd feel better about JD McKissick as like a guy that could rack up 5 or 6 catches in a Washington team that's going to be playing from behind quite a bit. And I think this is it right here. Robinson's just warming the bench right now. It's have this guy on your bench. I think we'll see his role grow. He could be the goal line back there. Gibson could just take a backseat, right? I mean, Rivera called him out for his fumbling, the way he runs. He was returning punts. They drafted Robinson. They brought back McKissick. They don't really feel all that great about Gibson. So Robinson's, pick him up, waivers, maybe not start him, but just have him on the bench. Other guys just kind of rapid fire through here. Rashad White, I still believe, is like a league winner, EY. A couple weeks ago, we saw him catch a couple passes. Leonard Fournette is getting a ton of touches, a ton of targets, goal line work. But if anything happened to Lenny, you have yourself a top 15 back in Rashad White. There's no question about it. He's already proved that he can catch passes, and he already has a red zone rushing attempt, which he converted for a touchdown this season. And these are, McKissick and McKinnon kind of group them together as maybe valuable in PPR leagues as like a flex play. McKinnon kind of got them going yesterday on the ground. CEH hasn't done a whole lot on the ground. He's had some touchdowns this season. He's been very efficient inside the red zone, catching passes. Pacheco's on this list as well, but McKinnon got them going. He's on the field in third down situations every time. It's not CEH. Andy Reid puts him out there. He's a veteran back that I do believe, has a little bit of value to him. And Gainwell is just, just in case if anything happened to Sanders, I think it would be split between him and Boston Scott, but just have a piece of this Eagles offense if you can afford to have a piece of it on your bench. Latavius didn't get any run because it was a short week, but I think he's going to be sprinkled into this Denver backfield as well. And we touched on Mike Boone on Friday on the show when we saw him on Thursday. He looked pretty good at UI. I still think it's going to be Melvin Gordon's backfield, but I think Boone has earned himself a couple more touches, and it could be closer to a split this Monday. So I would have him on your radar as well.
Yeah, Boone's an unreal athlete. I think he was in Minnesota originally, and you saw some glimpses when Dalvin Cook got hurt, and he was kind of like backing up Madison. So I like Boone. I've got him in a dynasty league. I've had him stashed on my bench since he played in Minnesota because I'm a Dalvin Cook owner. I drafted Dalvin Cook, and I've had Boone. And he's just been taking up space. It's obviously deep benches in this dynasty league, but now I look super smart by holding on to this guy. Obviously, dynasty is much different. You don't drop guys. There's not that much movement on the waiver wire each week. There's very, very little of that because every decent player is claimed. But having him, I think it's going to be a 50-50 split. I would say, Melvin Gordon hasn't done himself any favors with ball control and fumbling and the 2 or 3 of the games. I mean, 2 for sure they lost because he fumbled on the goal.
Because of him.
And
sure.
I don't care what you say. You can like a guy all you want. He's costing the franchise. He's costing the players around him, and he's costing the coach big time. And Mike Boone hasn't done that, and he's looked really good. So I mean, I would not be surprised if it's a real split between those two, with maybe even Boone getting more of the touches. And now you got to think about what a move by Denver. I mean, Latavius Murray comes in for the Saints, scores a touchdown, and then they snag him off the waiver wire. Just a scumbag move, but you got to respect it. And now they've got Latavius Murray.
A nice veteran back. And you said it. Gordon is one fumble away from maybe just taking a seat. It's new coaching staff, right? If he continues to fumble, Denver's got a couple losses.
They didn't really want him anyways, right? They said, we're not paying you. He tried to go somewhere else. Nobody wanted him. For the money that he was asking for, he ended up having to sign a much lower deal to come back to Denver. I think he's looked good when he's been carrying the ball. But, I mean, look at ball security in the NFL is number one. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if you run a 5.6 40. If you can hold on to the ball, the coach is going to find a way to trust you and put you in the game. You can be the greatest athlete and the greatest runner of all time. If you keep coughing up the ball and turning the ball over, you're not going to touch the field.
And they've really struggled inside the red zone this season, and Gordon has had multiple opportunities to get in. So there could be a change of guard there as well. Latavius Murray could be that goal line back. Mike Boone could be the goal line back. I think Boone's going to have himself a third down role on this team. And I think Latavius, he's a veteran back. You're right. They signed him after what was a decent game with the Saints, and he could turn out to be the goal line back. So just have a bunch of these running backs, on your waiver wire or just like, on your roster as like bench pieces here. Let's get to this question. We got from Black Jetty here in the house. What side would you rather have here? Cooper Kupp, Allen Lazard, or Stephon Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown? Full PPR. He's 5.
I mean, for me, I always, when I do trades, I just look at, the best player. I think it's obviously it's Kupp, but the big thing is Diggs is right there in the conversation with best player, best wide receiver in the NFL. And Matt Stafford is being murdered. Like they cannot protect him. He does not have time. Kupp has still been very efficient, and scored a bunch of points and scored a bunch of touchdowns, and he's great. But Diggs has also done that, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, when he was healthy, looked like one of the best receivers in the league. So I'm going Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown because of the two offenses those guys play on. Lazard is a dart throw. You don't know if it's going to be him or if it's going to be Cobb or if it's going to be Dubs or it's going to be Tonyan or maybe or Christian Watson when he comes back, or maybe they start throwing the ball to Aaron Jones. It's just you can't trust him at all. And Kupp, I'm worried that
Stafford could go down at any moment.
He's being absolutely battered. He's absolutely getting battered. And the offensive line there, it's football games are one up front. And, I don't pretend to know a ton about, offensive line play or defensive line play, but you can just watch. He has no time unless he's stepping back one step and then throwing it. He's not getting it away and he's getting killed. And he's already hurt. He had the elbow thing.
Oh, yeah. He's got the elbow
every time
thing.
He comes off the heel, he's holding his hand or he's holding his wrist or he's holding his ribs.
Yeah.
He's getting battered. And eventually he's just going to, be too scared to throw the ball.
And the line is depleted. Yeah. I have no hope at all for anybody on the Rams besides Cooper Kupp. Like Stafford, I would not be starting this guy. I would be looking at other quarterbacks. Only startable in super flex, and still I would look at a different quarterback as my second. Robinson, there's no rapport at all. There's no time to get rapport, I guess. He's not even really looking Allen Robinson's way all that much. Higbee, I guess, is a guy that I certainly would start at the tight end position. He still continues to get lots of targets, but neither running back in Henderson and Akers you can trust at all, because I wouldn't drop either. But you can't trust these guys in your starting lineup because they can't move the rock behind that offensive line. I would make this move too. I would make the move. You said it perfectly, I thought, in your analysis, but also do want to say that the Bills' schedule has been really tough to start the season. Rams, Baltimore, KC this week, and then out of the bye, Green Bay. But then it gets super soft. Look at this schedule down the stretch. Jets, Vikings, Browns, Detroit, Pats, Jets, Miami, Chicago, and Cincinnati to kind of wrap up. It's real favorable for Diggs. And Lazard's been good, right? We're kind of all over Rodgers and the Packers, but Lazard's been fine. So I understand like that move. Like you may not want to deal Lazard, but Amon-Ra, forget the past couple weeks, injuries and things. He's a really good player, as you mentioned, in this league. So I think that would be a win for you. Really close with Diggs, but an upgrade over Lazard, I do believe.
Yep.
We have another question here. Which is a comment here. We got Millie C in the house. I don't disagree with that comment. I think that this is a guy on a short week. We can get into this game now. We can dive into this game. Bills and Commanders. I could see him getting 15 rushes too. I really can. I think he's the back to own. But I still believe it's going to be crowded there. And if you can get out of this to get yourself a buy low candidate on a different running back, can you package Robinson and something else and get Aaron Jones? People seem to be sour on Aaron Jones this week. Like that's something that I would do. But I do agree with this comment, Millie. We could see Robinson get 15 plus carries. He was the back to draft in Washington before like that injury happened off season. He was the guy that I expected to get first and second down touches to get some goal line work. There is some value there, but it could get a little crowded at times. What do you make of this matchup here? It's basically a pick 'em. We got a low total at 38.5. There is one guy in terms of a prop that I like, and it is Dave Montgomery. I'll touch on him in a little bit, but walk me through what you think. We basically touch on the Washington backfield, and Carson Wentz is loving to throw the football, and Justin Fields is not loving to throw the football. This could be a real stinker. I don't know, man. I have a lean to the under, and that 38.5 is a low number, but I don't know if either team gets there, man.
Yeah, I think Washington looks, a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. First couple of weeks they come out and Wentz is whipping it all over the place, and Curtis Samuel looks like an all-star. And, Jahan Dotson looks like the best receiver taken in the first round this year. They still have Terry McLaurin, who's a really good player. Logan Thomas looks like he's back and he's going to do all this stuff, and then now like they look like a completely different team. They just don't seem to be clicking. If I was to have to pick a winner, I think Washington, just because they have more skill on the offensive side, spread the. I think Mooney's a good player, but if you get 4 targets a game, it doesn't matter how good you are. Clement, I think, is still a good tight end, but they're just not throwing the ball. I can't remember the number, but I think Fields is averaging in between 16 and 18 throws a game. You cannot win in the NFL now when your quarterback throws that amount of times. It is not possible. It will never be possible. It is a throwing league. It's an offensive league. And if you're literally like, if you're not trusting your quarterback to throw more than 16 times, then fire him and get another one, because you're not. I don't think Chicago's trying to win. It is the big thing. I don't believe they think they can win, obviously by the play calling, and it would take a bit of a miracle, I think, for Chicago to beat them, just because I think the Carson Wentz, he is not afraid. He's just not afraid. And Justin Fields, I don't know if he's afraid, but the coaching staff certainly is terrified to let him do anything. And the big shocking thing for me is like, okay, the quarterback is going to touch the ball the most out of any player in the offense. He's going to touch it every time the ball is hutted from center, and he's not running at all. And the runs that he do, they are not scripted. It's one of his number one skill sets. Justin Fields is running, and that they just are not scheming for him to run at all. If that changes, then I think that this could be different. But it doesn't look like they're interested.
What I will say is I noticed some more designed runs last week. I actually like his rushing yard prop BY at 38.5. Yeah. His the last couple of weeks have been 47, 52, and 47 rushing yards. You're right. The way the season started, he wasn't really running 28-20. There weren't a lot of design runs. I know the first game was sloppy weather, and that second one was at Lambeau. But the last couple I've noticed, they're starting to play to his strengths a little bit more. I don't know what took so long, but 8 for 47, 7 for 52, and 8 for 47. His rushing yard prop, I'm seeing at DraftKings, is minus 115 for over 38.5 rushing yards. I would take that one. I am in on that prop. I'm not seeing a lot of other props. We're coming at you Tuesday early, so it's a little difficult. We will have a lot in our bet tracker, ftnbets.com. I like Dave Montgomery over 14.5 receiving yards. Montgomery returned last week. He was a little limited, but he did look good. He had 4 targets, 4 catches, 62 yards. We can cross out the game where he got hurt. He left early. Week 1, he had 3 catches on 4 targets for 24 yards. And week 2, he had 2 catches on 2 targets for 14 yards. So he's been at least at 14 in every single game. But overall, this is a guy you could even go back to last season where you said it. Justin Fields is not throwing to really anybody. We can't feel great about Mooney and Clement on 3 or 4 targets. Montgomery's the guy who led everybody in receiving yards and catches last week. And he's done that a couple times with Justin Fields as his quarterback. I mean, he's got upside as a rusher, but I think his receiving yards, game is interesting. Last year, he was a guy that had 51 targets and 42 grabs. In his second year, he had 54 catches on 68 targets, 23 yards per game through the air last year, 29 and as a sophomore, and 25 so far this season. So if I saw anything at 2.5 catches, I would take the over on that. You could probably get it plus money, but I like the 14.5 receiving yards. I like Fields over 38.5. I'm going to be in on Terry, especially if Dotson doesn't play.
I got him.
It was a good matchup. Do you? That's your guy? Okay, so McLaurin, it's been hit or miss so far for him this year, but 76 yards last week on 5 grabs. Then the quiet game against Dallas, but the pressure was all over Carson Wentz, and credit to the Lions defense. And then week 3 against the Eagles, he had 6 grabs and 102 yards. So McLaurin, those are my 3 guys. Like Fields rushing yards, Montgomery receiving yards, Terry McLaurin receiving yards, and I'm kind of it on everything. I think if you saw a rushing yard prop for Brian Robinson at 10.5, I would lean to the over on that one. But let's round out the show with a couple touchdowns. You said you had Terry McLaurin. I don't think we'll see a lot of offense. I think you could take a shot on either defense to score a touchdown with these 2 quarterbacks the way that they are. I'd lean Bears more so than the Commanders. But this may be I don't know. Do we get nuts and say 0 touchdowns in this game? I mean, wouldn't be the first time we've seen it.
Yeah, I'm not going to get that nuts. I think typically games on Thursday, the defense is what struggles because of the short week. That's just what I've noticed over the last few years, the Thursday night football games. It's typically, decent offensive numbers because the defense doesn't have those extra 3 or 4 days to scheme and prepare. It's more of a kind of a vanilla defense or whatever, and they just kind of hope for the best. But for touchdown scorers, I've got for Washington, I got McLaurin, and I know that he's banged up, but Logan Thomas, he's a plus 425. Wentz is always like throwing to the tight end, and there seemed to be a connection there the first couple of weeks. If he plays, I'm going to have him in as my scorer. And I got Justin Fields at plus 225 to score a rushing touchdown, and Darnell Mooney at 285. Look, I mean, there's been a couple times in the last few weeks where Mooney has shown he's still Darnell Mooney when he's throwing the ball. And the offense has gotten a little bit better each time, and Washington secondary is not very good. So I like Darnell Mooney to score a touchdown here too.
I like that dart throw on Mooney. If there's one Bears wide receiver, it's that guy, right? The way that he's targeted deep down the field. Else. No, I wouldn't either. Fields, I got Fields written down here on my list. I have Terry McLaurin as well with you at plus 225. And then Robinson, I'll throw it at plus 275 as well. I think he'll be the goal line back there. And I will put 0.25 units on a Bears touchdown at 8-1. 8-1. I think both quarterbacks are in play to throw picks as well. I like the under. I'm actually going to lean with Chicago to win this game just because they're at home in a coin flip game. Just give me the home team, which but there's really not a lot to offer for either side, right? I think that's it. On Friday, we'll be back and we'll go through all the games on the schedule and we'll recap as well. Tony, on the way out here, I like this move for you. Dynasty, I kind of lean wide receiver over Jacobs, but if you're targeting Jacobs, you're happy with your core at wide receiver, which I like. DK, AJ Brown, Cooper, Hollywood. You got a nice core there. Running backs are hard to come by. I think ultimately in dynasty leagues, I do prefer the wide receivers. They got a larger and longer shelf life than these running backs. But, if you want Jacobs, you need to boost your team. I think that's the way to go. And then we do have Millie says, if Prescott's back and Schultz plays, do I start Schultz or do I play cheat code Taysom? You play cheat code Taysom. I don't think we'll see Dak this week against the Birds. I think we'll see one more week of Cooper Rush. All right, guys, we are out of here. I appreciate you guys hanging out today. And any questions, you guys can always hit us up. And until then, enjoy the Thursday night football game. We'll see you on Friday. Cheers.